Kurt.
Hi.
Hey, can you see me at all?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. We might as well get started. It's about 7:05. The people are starting to roll in, start to come in. For the record, I want to introduce attorney Kurt Haskell to the Freedom is Fundamental Book Club and discussion group here in Rhode Island. Attorney Haskell is in Detroit, and he was a passenger on the now infamous flight that the underwear bomber was on.
The underwear bomber flight. Yeah.
The underwear bomber flight. So I'm going to let him tell the entire story because it's his story, and I know he's told it a million times, but I'd like to hear you guys to hear it from his mouth. I'm going to be passing out some index cards while he's talking with some pens, and you can all write your questions down and pass them up to me if you have questions. We'll have a chance, I'll have a chance to read all these questions to him. So, Kurt, if you want to start by just going over what happened and,
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. There's a lot to this, so it's going to take me a little bit to tell the story, but I think if you listen to everything I have to say here, you'll come to the same conclusion that I have, which is that I believe the U.S. government intentionally staged this plot by providing the underwear bomber an intentionally defective bomb. So with that in mind, keep your mind open to what I'm telling you, and I'll go through it piece by piece, and you can see how I lay out my case to come to this conclusion. Now, that wasn't my initial conclusion. Let me go back to the start, and we'll take it piece by piece. My wife and I were in Uganda. We were on an African safari, and we were coming back, and we flew to Kenya first, and then to Amsterdam, and then our connecting flight back was to Detroit. And it all started in Amsterdam. They do the security a little different in Amsterdam. They do the security at the gate. Unlike here in Detroit, I don't know how they do it in Rhode Island, but here in Detroit, once you go through security, you can go from gate to gate and mingle with passengers from different flights. But in Amsterdam, you go through security at the gate, and then you're in a room with only people on your flight. So we had gone through security, and it was Christmas Day, 2009, and everyone had, Christmas presents, a lot of baggage, heavy coats, and there were not two seats together anywhere. So my wife and I sat on the floor by the gate. We're ready. By the gate, I mean the aisle you go down to get on the plane. And there's a desk there with a lady working there. I'll call her the ticket agent. So we sat on the floor there, maybe about 10 feet away, and we started playing cards, just passing time. Mm-hmm. And I was facing the ticket gate, and my wife Lori was facing me. So she had her back to what I saw. And what I saw was an Indian man who looked like he was about 50 years old in a tan suit. He looked like he had some money, looked like he was wealthy. And he was walking with an African. I thought he was a teenager, maybe about 16. And he was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt only. He didn't have any bags with him. He didn't have a coat with him. He didn't have any heavy clothes, nothing. And I was just watching the two to figure out why they were together. I was just kind of people watching as we played cards. And they walked to the ticket desk together, and just the Indian man spoke. And what he said was, this man needs to get on a plane, but he doesn't have a passport, talking about the African man. And the ticket agent then said, well, you have to have a passport to get on the plane. And the Indian man then kind of argued with her, and what he said was, he's from Sudan, we do this all the time. That's a word-for-word quote. And she still wouldn't let him on the plane, so she referred them down a hallway to a manager and pointed, and they went down the hallway on their own. And a couple to this man spoke perfect English. I didn't detect any accent at all. He was obviously in some sort of powerful position to be able to do this. He did not have a security uniform on, so I don't believe he was part of security. And he was allowed to go down this hallway, this secure hallway, without an escort, with just himself and the African teenager. Now, at the time, this meant absolutely nothing to me. It meant so little, I didn't even tell my wife. I was thinking, this guy's not going to get on the plane. So later on, we boarded the plane, and as we're coming in to land into Detroit, about 8 hours later, the same African, what I thought was a teenager, come to find out he was 23 then, but he tried to blow up our plane. Just after the pilot came on the loudspeaker and said, flight crew, take your seats, we're going to be landing here in a few minutes, one of the flight attendants walked by my seat and said, something smells like smoke, as she walked by, and they got me to look up, and I could see 8 rows ahead to the left by the window, smoke coming up. And I got out of my seat and ran out the aisle to get a better look, and as I was doing that, the whole area burst into flames. And as I was looking at that, another passenger grabbed this African man, I didn't recognize him yet, and hauled him into the first class area. Now, there wasn't a fight, there wasn't any screaming, he just kind of grabbed him and hauled him away. So I didn't know if he was hurt in a freak fire or what was going on yet. But people were screaming, even the flight crew was screaming. It was a pretty scary moment. And one of the flight attendants grabbed the fire extinguisher and ran over, and within about a minute had the fire put out.
So I'm sorry, the flight crew was screaming?
Yeah.
Which airline?
Yes,
which
it was
airline was
scary.
this? Yeah, which airline was this?
Delta.
Okay.
Delta. Believe me, it's very scary when a flight attendant is standing, you're screaming at the top of her lungs.
Which is like kind of what they've been trained to do, is like when there's an emergency, they're supposed to, So continue,
Right.
Go ahead.
The pilot came back on the loudspeaker and said, emergency landing. He just said 2 words. And he sounded kind of shook up. And you could feel the plane speeding up instead of slowing down coming to land. And he basically floored it, I think. And we were on the ground about 10 minutes later. I was thinking we would get off the plane by the emergency chutes, all the emergency doors would open, we'd jump out right away in the middle of the runway. No, that's not what happened. We landed, we taxied like you normally do, all the way up to the terminal. The FBI gets on the plane and basically tells everyone to sit down and shut up because they're not getting off the plane. And they just stayed in the first class area for about 20 to 30 minutes. Didn't even check on anyone else or to see if there was any accomplices or any other bombs or anything like that. At this point, we didn't even know it was a bomb though. So we just wanted off the plane. After about 20 or 30 minutes of sitting there, the underwear bomber is escorted off in handcuffs. And before they took him off, he stood in the hallway for about 20 to 30 seconds. And that's when I got a good look at him, and that's when I realized it was the same guy that I saw before we boarded. And I turned to my wife, Lori, and I said, I think I might have saw something important. And that was kind of when it hit me to what I had seen before we boarded in Amsterdam and how important it might be. So he was taken off, and then we were taken off. We were allowed to take our carry-on bags, which I thought was another huge mistake then. Being an attorney, we're destroying the crime scene.
Right.
Taking our carry-on bags off, we walked literally next to the seat where he was sitting. Well, I'm sorry, he sat 2 seats from the aisle, so the seat next to where he was sitting. But there was bomb residue all over this area. It was burned, and here we are trampling through it as we get off the plane, and I'm just shaking my head at this.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. Now, at some point, like when the FBI came on and said nobody can leave their seats, did they take any photographs or touch any evidence at that point while everybody was sitting there?
They stayed in the first class area, but they didn't even come in the rest of the plane, and he was not in the first class area, so that area just sat there.
Okay.
I weren't anywhere near that area.
Wow. And then I had heard an interview with you on some, I don't know which outlet it was, but you had said that there was a person who was videotaping on the plane, people getting on the plane. Is that still part of? Yeah.
Now, I didn't witness this person.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I didn't see him was because between his seat and my seat was the bathroom.
Okay.
So I couldn't have seen this, but there are other passengers that have come out and said, there was this guy that started videotaping before the incident happened, all the way through it until after it ended, which is pretty peculiar if you ask me. You know, I was sure I was going to die. So when you think you're going to die, you're not sitting there filming an entire incident, you know, not turning off your video camera. It's just ridiculous.
Right. You're supposed to be getting in that crouch position or something, right?
You're right. You're thinking about your family and, you know, how you're going to die and you're not going to see them again and that sort of thing. Right. So very strange. By the way, I was contacted by another passenger later on. I was going to tell you this in a little bit, but he said, hey, I know who this guy was that filmed the entire incident. And I said, really? Can you give me his contact information? And he did. And I sent him an email, and he didn't respond. And I sent him another email, and about a week later, I got a response from his attorney, and no communication from him. Mm-hmm. But anyway. So, yeah, other passengers have said that, but I can't say that I personally saw it because I didn't.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So then we're taken off the plane with our carry-on bags. We're taken into a luggage claim area that had been evacuated already. Yeah. And there was nobody there, nothing. And we're all told to stand along the wall with our carry-on bags. And we stood there for about an hour. Again, we don't know if there's an accomplice. We don't know if there's another bomb. Totally putting our lives in jeopardy standing there. And after about an hour, the FBI brought in bomb-sniffing dogs. And one of them found something in the bag.
Wait a second. Now,
of another.
I'm sorry, there's an hour delay before they brought the bomb-sniffing dogs? It took an hour to
Yes, we just stood there for an hour along the wall. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so one of them, the FBI takes the dogs around to each of us, sniffing our carry-on bags. And one of them finds something in the bag of another Indian man, different one. This one's around age 30, so about 20 years younger than the other man. Mm-hmm. And he had on an orange shirt. And he's since become known as the man in orange. The other man, the media has called the sharp dressed man, the man in tan suit. So I'll refer to them as that to not confuse them. But this man in orange was immediately taken away by the FBI for questioning with his bag. He wasn't handcuffed yet. They took him into a side room for questioning where we could see the door. He was in there for about an hour. Then the FBI took him out and they handcuffed him and took him away. As they were taking him away, a different FBI agent came up to the rest of us passengers and said, I'm sure you've seen what has just happened here. It's not safe here. We need to evacuate this area and take you to another area. And then we were escorted out of this area and taken to a hallway where we had to stand for the next 4 hours or so. We were held for about 6 hours. We weren't allowed to call anyone. We weren't allowed to drink anything. We couldn't eat anything. We couldn't text. We couldn't go to the bathroom for a long time. And then they made it a little more lenient and let us go with an FBI agent one at a time. So it was really tight security. After about 5-6 hours, the head FBI agent came up to the rest of us and said, we believe we have those responsible for this in custody. Those, not the man, not him or the perpetrator, those plural. And then he said, we're going to do interviews of each of you family by family, and then you'll be free to go. And that's what they did. And when it came to be our turn, this is when I first told the FBI, the story that I've been repeating ever since. And believe me, we were in shock. So, you know, some people are saying that I made up this story for one reason or another. No, this is the same story I told from right after we landed. It hasn't changed a bit. You know, this is not a place that I'd be making up stories to risk my legal career while I'm in shock for no purpose. But I told the FBI this story. They seemed pretty interested. At the time, the agent that was interviewing us actually called over another FBI agent to sit in and listen and take notes. And they were free to go. And we went home. And the next day, I made a comment. This blew up in the media for the first 24 hours, you know, really big. It was a big story. And I put a comment on an internet message board that I was on the flight. And a reporter called me within an hour. And I did a quick interview with her on mlive.com. And then it just kind of blew up after that. I kept getting calls from media all over the world. Every TV station, every newspaper, or pretty much every reporter in the world was calling me. And they were actually reporting my story accurately for a while, asking questions about what happened and that sort of thing. And that would change later, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm writing this down, media, wanted to hear how this went for you. Go ahead.
Right. A few interesting things came out early on. One was a Dutch media report that indicated that the Dutch military police said the underwear bomber did not go through normal security measures at Amsterdam airport. It was only reported once, but I have the link. I'd have to look it up, but if anyone's interested, just send me an email. I'll send you the story. It was only reported once, but nobody else ever reported it. So we have that. Then a reporter called me for an interview, and she said, "Hey, Kurt, did you know that the FBI was at the airport even before your flight landed?" And I thought about that for a minute. It didn't really hit me at first, but then I realized our flight was on Christmas Day, and probably hardly any FBI agents were working, and this incident happened 10 minutes before landing. So why were the FBI already at the airport when we landed 10 minutes later at this airport that's 30 minutes drive outside of Detroit? I'll let you think about that for a minute. Initially, my wife and I thought we were helping the investigation, telling what we had seen, hoping to help in the capture of any accomplices, but we found out pretty soon that they didn't want to have the real story come out. And this was evident when the FBI started lying about the man in orange, the second man that was taken into custody in the Detroit airport. The FBI's first version was nobody else was taken into custody. I then came out and in a couple of interviews I said that wasn't true, and the FBI, after a few other passengers came out and backed up my story, changed their story to, yes, another man was taken into custody, but it was an immigration violation. And then I came out to the media and reported why that wasn't possible, because it was a bomb-sniffing dog that found explosives in his bag. And the FBI then changed their story to this was a man from another flight. And then I came out and explained why that wasn't true, because the entire area had been evacuated and there were no people from other flights there. And this went on 5 times. They changed their story about this man 5 times. Yeah, it's all documented in my blog, step by step. I can't remember all of them exactly. But it became obvious to Lori and I early on that this was going to be some sort of cover-up, and it has been. Again, shortly after this, a Mr. Wolf, and I can't remember his first name, but he went on the Keith Olbermann show, and what he said was that the Obama administration is looking at the possibility that this was an intentional plot by U.S. intelligence agents. That was the only time this was ever reported. Nobody ever followed up on it. And then we have the media reports from other passengers about the cameraman that I just talked to you about. And then I got a strange call from another passenger about a week later. And what he said was, he just called me out of the blue. I didn't know who this person was. And what he said was, "Kurt, I don't think you should talk about this in the media anymore because you're going to look stupid when the truth comes out." And he said what you saw was a minor by himself being escorted through security by a security agent. And I asked him if he saw this at Amsterdam. He said no. He said he saw them after we landed in Detroit. And I said, okay, that may be your version of what happened, but it's not my version. That's not what I saw. And I looked into this a little more, and I found out that there were no unescorted minors on a flight, number one. Number two, you have to be age 11 or younger to have an escort, to have a security escort. And the underwear bomber does not look like he's 11. He might look 16, but not 11. And I also looked into who this person was that called me, and I found out he works for a contractor that gets 80% of its business from the Department of Defense.
Right.
Do the math.
But that just tells you the lengths the government's going to not have this story get out. after we saw some of the shenanigans going on, Lori and I predicted that we would never see the videotape from the Amsterdam airport. And it's never been released, just like we thought. As a matter of fact, the government came out and said, we've reviewed 200 hours of security video from...
Oh, all right, hold on. You're breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry?
You're starting to break up a little bit.
Oh.
Okay, so start from the beginning of after the contractor was calling you. Which contractor was he calling from? Can you disclose that?
Well, can you hear me okay?
Big building.
Yeah, go.
Start
Yeah, go ahead. Start again. I can hear you now, but it's
can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
okay.
Go.
Yeah, after we started seeing what was going on, Lori and I predicted that the airport security video would never be released, and it hasn't, even to this day, which is kind of ironic because the government loves to release bits and pieces of terrorist video here and there, but there's none from this incident, just as we predicted. The statement by the government on these security videos that they've reviewed 200 hours of security video and it shows nothing. 3 weeks after they made this press release, an ABC News article reported that the government is now looking into to determine who the man was that escorted the underwear bomber through security at Amsterdam airport. Now, three weeks after they made the statement that they reviewed the video and it shows nothing, at an airport with the most video cameras in the world, they make this contradictory statement that they're now looking for this man. They had initially ignored passenger counts, but now they're looking for this man to see who the accomplice was. The only time, the only place this has ever been reported that the government acknowledges the existence of this man. Of course, in the middle of January, we had the Obama speech that lays out the official version, which was that, we just had a lot of screw-ups and we failed to connect the dots. That speech was the complete lie, as you can tell by a lot of the evidence, and I have a lot more still to go.
But if I can interrupt you? Wasn't it the Obama administration that was looking into the... Remember you mentioned that a gentleman named Wolf showed up on TV or something, or saying that they were looking into it? And,
yes.
And it was, what was it, 2 months later, where Obama came out and said it was all just...
2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, okay, yep.
Yep, 2 weeks later. It's all just a series of errors. So again, contradicting themselves. Mm-hmm. At this point, the mainstream media quit talking to me after the failed to connect the dot speech. Only alternative media, radio, and internet interviews would talk to me. So I started to get the idea of how things work with the government and the media. Whatever the government says, the media reports, and if you say something that's against what the government says, nobody will talk to you. Shortly thereafter, we had congressional hearings on this, which I'm sure you probably didn't know about because only one newspaper reported on them, the Detroit Free Press, because the testimony was too damaging. The testimony by Patrick Kennedy from the State Department basically admitted that they let him on the plane on purpose. Now, he didn't say those words exactly. When he's asked those questions, he kind of squirms in his chair and says this and that, and we need to talk about this in closed session, da-da-da-da-da. But basically, he admits they knew he was a terrorist, and they wanted to track him into the U.S. to, quote, catch bigger fish that he would take them to. We also had testimony by Michael Leiter, who is the Director of National Counterterrorism, who says that we frequently let terrorists, and if the terrorist, in fact, is in the U.S., he's likely here because we let him here. Now, I bet you didn't hear that reported anywhere. During this time, another passenger contacted me and verified my account of the sharp-dressed man, saying she saw exactly what I did in Amsterdam before we boarded, but she was too scared and does not want to come out to the media. And I never revealed who she has sent. She still hasn't come out and said anything about it. So there was one other person that backed up what I saw before we boarded. Now, during this time, I was still kind of trying to put together the pieces of what happened, and I couldn't get around the subject of the U.S. government providing the bomber with what I thought was a legitimate bomb. I just couldn't believe that the government would give him a legitimate bomb and blow up a plane with 300 people on it, some of them Americans. And what I considered to be the last piece of the puzzle were two events in other cities in 2010. One, the Wrigley Field bomber, and two, the Portland Christmas tree bomber, where the FBI came out and admitted that they gave each of these alleged terrorists fake bombs. They admitted this. When I saw that, to me, that was the last piece of the puzzle, and I could put the whole picture together that the U.S. government provided the underwear bomber with an intentionally defective bomb to stage a fake terrorist event. There's more evidence I have to back that up, too. We start getting into the court proceedings, and the underwear bomber initially had court-appointed attorneys, but he fired them in the summer of 2010 to represent himself. And Judge Edmonds appointed what's called a standby attorney for the underwear bomber. He's not his actual attorney. The standby attorney is an attorney that will become his attorney if he ever decides he wants an attorney. And his is Anthony Chambers. Now, during this time, I was trying to contact the underwear bomber because he didn't have an attorney, so I figured I could talk to him. I called the prison 6 times. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and I'm saying, why not? Why shouldn't you call him? You're an attorney.
Why not? He doesn't have an attorney. I am an attorney.
Yeah.
I called the prison 6 times to talk to him. I kept getting the runaround. Talk to this person will call you back, da-da-da-da. Nobody did anything. So what do? I drive to the prison to talk to him, which I did. And I talked to the security guard there. I took one of the other attorneys from my office as a witness in case anything happened out of the ordinary. And we talked to the guard at the gate, and he took our IDs and said, oh, I just need to clear it with the manager of the area he's being held in, and we'll see if you can talk to him in a few minutes. So I thought, great. Took a seat, waited a few minutes. I saw the manager come up and talk to him. He showed her my ID, and then I could see a change in her persona and his. And he came out and talked to me and said, oh, you didn't call here 6 times at all. I don't think you called here at all. You can't talk to him, and you can't talk to him now. You need to call and set that up. So I drove back to my office and made a call to set up an appointment, and then I was told he's not allowed any visitors unless he puts you on his visitor card first, and he's not allowed to talk to any attorneys because he has a standby attorney. So that was my visit to Milan Prison to see the underwear bomber. In late 2010, there was a conspiracy charge added to the crimes that the underwear bomber committed, and what the indictment says is he conspired with persons known and unknown to commit the terrorist attack. What's strange about the indictment is it doesn't name any co-conspirators. It says they're known, but it doesn't name any of them. Nobody else has been charged with this crime. Why not? The reason is that they're part of U.S. intelligence. Now, in early January, standby attorney Chambers made a statement to the press saying the bomb given to the underwear bomber was impossibly defective, and that's according to the government's own explosive experts, and he has the evidence for this, which I thought was just another piece into the puzzle, what I have been saying for a while to this point. And that's reported in the Detroit News, if anyone wants to read the article. I'm sorry, the Detroit Free Press. Again, early in January, the prosecution filed what I thought was an unusual motion. They filed a motion, which a motion is to set a hearing. You know, interrupt me or ask questions if I'm talking too much legalese.
No, you just keep talking. This is awesome. Okay.
They set a hearing to block all the evidence being given to standby attorney Chambers. And Chambers said, well, how am I to represent this guy or, attempt to represent him or advise him if I don't have the evidence? And they had a hearing on this in early January, and I went to the hearing. And the government was very concerned about this evidence getting in the hands of Chambers. And for the reason they stated, if it gets in the hands of Chambers, he doesn't have the attorney-client privilege with the underwear bomber. bomber because he's only a standby attorney. Attorney-client privilege blocks all information between the two getting in the hands of third parties. So what they're saying is, if we give this information to Chambers, other people can get it, like passengers, and they can sue based on this evidence. And, you know, we're worried about this, so we don't think Chambers should have any of this evidence. And the judge actually agreed. So the decision was that the evidence would only be given to the underwear bomber. This is the evidence given to his prior fired attorneys. They would have to turn over their evidence and the prosecution's evidence only to the underwear bomber, and he would get to decide what he would give to Chambers only. And Chambers would be blocked from all the other evidence. Very interesting, I think, anyway, why the government would go to these lengths. Obviously, I think they're trying to protect themselves from a civil lawsuit from the passengers.
Can I, because I'm not a lawyer here, but
yes.
I would imagine if the government was going to try to arrest me and throw me in jail, I don't know why they would let me have the evidence and be in charge of who gets to look at it. That's unrepresented.
The prosecution has to...
Because I'm unrepresented?
The prosecution has to turn over all their evidence to the defense.
Okay.
But the interesting point is here is that they set up a hearing specifically to block it being given to the standby attorney. So I hope you're following me. If he had a regular attorney, there wouldn't be an issue because the attorney-client privilege applies and nobody else can get any communications or evidence between the two. But if the government turned over their evidence to the standby attorney, who's not the real attorney, other people could subpoena and get it, like myself, and I would have immediately.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
And use to sue the government if it shows exactly what I'm telling you, and I'm certain it does. Does that clear it up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right,
okay.
Hold on. Does anybody else have questions? Have you written questions down? Yep. Whenever you write a question down, just bring it up to me, okay? All right. Oh gosh, I hope I can read this. All right, but you go ahead. Now you talk. I'm just going to read.
Okay. Am I running over?
No. We got till 8. They're going to kick us out at 8:30. I was thinking if you even talk to us for 15 minutes, I'd be excited. But this is awesome. So you just keep talking. You keep talking.
I contacted standby attorney Chambers on 2 occasions. I wanted to make sure he knew who I was because I saw this article in the paper that said the government's trying to block evidence from him getting the evidence. So I contacted him and I said, hey, I want to make sure you know who I am. I'm an eyewitness. I'm an attorney. I think I can help your case. And he called me. He called me back right away. Within 30 minutes of me, I sent him a fax. Within 30 minutes, he called me. And we talked about this a little bit. And what he told me was the prosecution is desperate to have this case just go away. They're willing to settle for any type of plea deal. They just want it to go away. They're even offering lenient plea deals just to get rid of this. They do not want it to go to trial at all. Now, why would that be if this is such a clear-cut terrorist case with 300 witnesses as to who did this? Again, I'm just giving you something to think about for a second. But I talked to Chambers another time, and we agreed to set up a meeting to discuss the case in a little more depth. And we haven't done that yet. I don't know if he's just busy or what's going on, but we haven't done that yet. And then I went to, like I said a few minutes ago, I went to the hearing in January, and it was also interesting because Judge Edmonds, for 20 minutes, got into an argument with the underwear bomber, trying to tell him he needs to have an attorney. And the underwear bomber kept saying, no, I'm going to represent myself. I'm fine. I can do it myself. And this went on back and forth for 20 minutes. And it ended with the underwear bomber saying he just needs more time to read up on how to be his own attorney. And he asked for his trial to be delayed into 2012, which is very strange from someone being held since Christmas Day 2009 with a free attorney. After the hearing, Lori and I were the only passengers there, and we were swarmed by the media again. And we did interviews with 6 or 7 TV stations. I told them, as we started the interview, I said, I'm not sure you're going to want to report what I have to say, And I don't think any of you will actually report it. I told them that. And they all interviewed me still, both of us actually, for about 15 minutes. And I was shocked when Fox TV here in Detroit actually played the interview on live TV, because it was the first mainstream media we had appeared on in about a year. And they actually aired an interview like I'm doing right now, where I blame the U.S. government for staging this terrorist attack, fake terrorist attack. And again, that put me back into the media again all over the place, and I was getting contacted by the media again left and right. And Fox TV actually came to my law office the next day and did a second interview with my wife and I, where we talk about the same thing, and I gave them a list of evidence I have, most of which I'm telling you here today, a list of about 25 items of evidence I have. And they aired that interview too, and you can see both of those interviews on YouTube if you just Google my name. They're both from January this year. The next hearing date is set for April 7th, so I'll be attending again. I don't know exactly where things are at this point, but the trial is set for October. For sure, I will be there watching. I know the prosecution is not going to call me as a witness, and I don't know if the defense will. If he has an attorney, I would think I'd for sure be a witness for the defense, but representing himself, I think this will just be a big farce. This trial will be a joke. But that's kind of where we're at. That's about my entire story, I think. Unless anyone had questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at all.
Did anybody have questions that you want to ask? Okay.
So could you ask him if he's disillusioned with the fact that he's now discovered that the government is corrupt, the judges are corrupt, the prosecution is corrupt? Did you already know that as an attorney, or was this a revelation?
All right. Did you hear that question?
I only heard parts of it.
This woman wanted to know if how the level of disillusion you felt about the U.S. government, the attorneys involved, the judges involved, and the FBI, just at what level? When was it smacking you in the head? And she asked, didn't you already know that since you're an attorney?
No, really, I didn't really know that. I kind of thought this country was on the up and up before this happened, and it was kind of to slap me across the side of the face. And I figured out very early on when the government started putting out lies to the media in the first week, and I woke up really quick and I got really angry with the government and the FBI because, even though it was a fake bomb, this bomb started a fire on our flight. We thought we were going to die, and we didn't sleep for months. My wife and I both, probably 3 or 4 months, we didn't sleep at all. This was a very traumatic event. We had to go get medication to sleep. We were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's been terrible, really. To this day, I take sleeping pills on every flight I go on now because of this. As far as the attorneys, I am absolutely livid with the prosecution because I think they're not being ethical. I don't think they're being honest. And they're covering up for illegal events that the government's doing to its people. And I'm absolutely livid with them. Attorney Chambers, I think, is doing the best he can. He's been kind of put in a hard position, not being the actual attorney, so I don't have any problems with him. And actually, I don't have any problems with Judge Edmonds because I don't think she's any part of this either, at least not to this point. I think she's doing a fine job actually trying to get the underwear bomber using attorneys, so I don't have any issues with either of them. But I'm absolutely livid over this, and I'm extremely close to suing the United States government for a violation of my civil rights over this. So you may see that in the media real soon, me suing the United States government.
Woohoo!
Go for it.
Some applause back there.
We're with you.
Yeah, we're with you.
We're with you.
We're with you. All right, let's see. We've got some questions that are kind of came up here. Anybody else?
Scribble quickly.
Yeah.
Was this your question?
Those are mine.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, hold on. Okay, I gotta read.
Thank you for being here.
Yes,
speaking
everybody.
with us,
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Haskell.
you very much.
Sure, no problem.
All right. Do you want to just come close and talk?
Yeah,
close?
I can.
All right. Go ahead. Introduce
Hi,
yourself.
I don't know if, my name is Nathan Florence.
You're just
Hi.
gonna.
It's quite a pleasure to get to speak with you today. And
Sure.
My question was, well, I scribbled it down, but I can just ask off the top of my head. Have you looked into ICTS's involvement? International Consultants on Targeted Security. Familiar with that firm?
Yes, I am. I know they were in charge of security at the Amsterdam airport when this happened. I know they were in charge of security on 9/11 in Boston, at Boston Logan Airport, I think. And also they were in charge of security at Charles de Gaulle Airport in France when the shoe bomber was. So yeah, I'm aware of who they are.
Richard Reed. Yeah.
You're right, Richard Reed, the shoe bomber. So whether that's coincidence or not, I'll let you make your own decision. But yeah, I'm aware. I won't fly in any airport where they're providing security either.
Also in Russia, the recent loss of life there, the bombing at Russia, right when they were about to recognize Palestine as a state. They had ICTS was involved in that as well.
My understanding is the founder of ICTS parts were the Israeli Mossad, I believe.
Yeah, Shin Bet, Mossad, Menachem Atzman, and Ezra Harel.
Mm-hmm. And attacks like this serve their purpose in many ways. So yeah.
Have you spoken publicly about that, or is this the first time? I've listened to you on many radio interviews, but.
Yeah, just when people like you ask me about it, I haven't come out and mentioned it myself, but yeah, I can see the connections, and yeah, I can see some cooperation between them and the U.S. government staging this attack, possibly. It's not out of the realm of possibility, for sure.
Okay, I'd like to tell you that I have hand-delivered and spoken personally on film to Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and Chris Berry, it's actually spelled Berry, of ABC, concerning your case, mentioning ICTS and other things. Have you been contacted by them for any interviews?
No, I've kind of taken the position during this that I will let people contact me. I actually haven't contacted anybody for interviews, if you believe that. Everyone that has done an interview with me has contacted me. And what I've tried to do is I don't want anyone to say I'm doing anything wrong for any sort of purpose or have any way to discredit me. So I only do interviews with people that contact me, but I do them all. Whoever asks me for an interview, I do an interview. I don't cut anybody out or discriminate in any way. So that's kind of how I decided I would handle this.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, just to, maybe I asked that incorrectly. Have those people contacted you? Because Joe Scarborough promised me he would.
Joe Scarborough has not contacted me because I would have done an interview with him, as I do with everyone that contacts me.
Okay. And I guess my only other question for you, well, I have so many, and but we have limited time. Has there been any progress in you managing to insert yourself in the trial? Have you found any way to force your way into the transcript of the upcoming trial?
Well, I've looked, being an attorney, of course, I have to look into all my options. So the prosecution doesn't want me anywhere near the courtroom. They hate me.
We hate them too.
They hate me. The defense, he's representing himself. I've tried to contact him in prison, like I told you a few minutes ago.
Right.
And it's almost like they have a cloak around him where no one is allowed to contact him in any way. So I haven't been successful there. Now, I've talked to his standby attorney a couple times, but I haven't progressed very far with him, at least not yet. As far as interjecting myself as a third party into the criminal trial, representing rights of passengers, I've looked into the legal aspects of that, and I don't think there are any legal grounds to do that. There is one other possibility, that would be me filing a civil suit and asking Judge Edmonds to combine the two cases and try them at the same time. I haven't ruled that out yet. I'm pretty doubtful that she would do that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Will the public be allowed into the courtroom?
As far as I know, Judge Edmonds hasn't indicated these would be closed hearings yet, and none of the hearings so far have been closed. They've all been open to the public. So unless she changes her opinion, this will be open to the public.
And does the court stenographer have to record everything? Say somebody who speaks loudly from the crowd.
Yes, and also keep in mind I get to state a victim's impact statement at the end of the trial.
thank you so much, sir, for talking to us today. And
Sure.
you really are a hero because people with first-hand information like this are risking their lives a lot more than those of us who just step up and help report the stories. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And that brings me to my question was, do you feel in any way threatened? I mean, I know you've got the post-traumatic stress diagnosis and you have to take sleeping pills, but is there any, are you starting, or do you at all feel any way threatened by, you wouldn't even know who, I guess, at this point, but.
I haven't been, no, I can't say I've been threatened, but I know the threat is there. I know other people that have witnessed things have been killed off mysteriously, being run over by a taxi cab as you walk down the sidewalk, or a small plane crash, or being run over by a car in your own driveway when nobody else is around, strange things like that. So I'm aware of the risk, but I kind of look at this, you know, I haven't been threatened overtly, but I'm aware of the risk, and I kind of think it's my obligation to speak out, because if an eyewitness attorney doesn't come out and try and tell the truth to people, who's going to? That's kind of the position I take, that it's my obligation as a citizen to do this. The government usually tries to discredit people that are eyewitnesses, and they don't really have any way they can discredit me. They can't threaten my job. I'm self-employed. They can't dig up any dirt in my background. I don't have any. They can't say, they can try and say I'm lying, but I don't think anyone will believe them, because if I was lying, I'd jeopardize my legal license, which is what I make a living from. So, I guess to answer your question, I haven't been threatened directly, but I'm aware it's out there.
Okay, hold on. Got one more question. Oh, we got a couple more questions here.
We're keeping you busy.
All right. All right. Who do you believe will benefit overall from the suppression of all this information?
Oh, that's an easy one. The people in the military-industrial complex that are making money off of that. Because think about this for a minute. Okay, we have the attacks on 9/11, and I'm not going to get into whether you believe those or not. But let's say they were real and they happened, and they're legitimate, which I don't believe. But this happens December 2009. So there were no terrorist attacks. Well, actually, I think the shoe bomber happened in December '01. But let's say an 8-year period. 8 years, no legitimate terrorist attacks. And then all of a sudden we have this one, and then, the Portland Christmas tree bomber, Wrigley Field bomber, and a couple other ones. All of those where the FBI has admitted some involvement, except this one. They won't admit involvement in this one because it endangered so many lives. So what they're doing, they would have had essentially 10 years now with no terrorist attacks. So how can the government legitimately put these trillions of dollars towards these two illegal wars, continue all the production of all these weapons, continue taking rights away from Americans, all based on terrorist attacks that don't happen? That's number one. And then number two would be the people making the body scanning machines and all the people that are being paid off to have these government contracts go through, which are a direct result of this flight. Millions and millions of dollars in body scanning machines. Of course, spread around through your politicians via lobbyists. So it's not too hard to figure out who's benefiting from this.
Did you have a follow-up?
Well, actually, I wanted to congratulate you and thank you again, Attorney Haskell. Bill Alley from WYNY Radio, Putnam, Connecticut.
Hi.
I had been feeling for the longest time that you have put all the dots together and figured out just exactly where all of this is coming from, its top viewpoint. And it refreshes me to hear you say those words verbatim. I've been waiting for this day. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm trying. I really am. But a lot of people are listening. So.
Right on. Now there's some other questions here. Did you want to ask yours now?
Yeah.
Randy had a question.
Hi, my name is Randy Swanson. I'm the acting state chapter president for the Rhode Island Oath Keepers. And my question is, what do you suggest we do if we have our own sensitive information that we need to release? What do you suggest we do for our own security so we don't get surgically removed or disappeared?
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure that out myself. I've tried everything humanly possible to get this information out. I've only minimally succeeded. You know, I really don't know it, especially from someone that's not an attorney. I think I get a little bit more credibility being an attorney and being able to speak to the public like I do every day in a courtroom. And you know, I think anyone else would just get absolutely lambasted by the media. So I don't know what to say. You know, they've tried really hard to do that to me too. I think they failed so far, but boy, I don't know. And believe me, I've made a lot of efforts to get this story to come out, put in hundreds of hours of time doing interviews and things, and I don't know what to tell you, really.
So we could kind of agree, let the truth be known, and like they say, the best way not to get removed is to write a book.
I don't know about that. You know, I haven't written a book. I haven't been removed yet. Just kind of ignored, maybe, but maybe I'll be removed soon. I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you.
So somebody did ask the question: are you going to write a book? Somebody wrote.
I don't have any plans to do that. I don't like to, you know, anyone to think that I'm doing this to make money. I haven't made a penny off any of this, and you know, other people on our flight, other passengers have made over $30,000, some of them doing interviews and selling pictures. I've made zero intentionally. I'm intentionally not taking any money because I don't want anyone to try and attack my credibility. So I guess my answer is not now, sometime in the future. I don't know, maybe.
And Marty has one more question. Go ahead, Marty.
Okay, now I know you witnessed with underwear, but if your phone being tapped or you're being watched all the time, is your phone being tapped because you witness?
Yeah. I don't know. I would assume that it is. I would think that my computer is too. I had one computer get so slow about a week after this happened that I had to quit using it, and the one I have right now that I'm using right now is actually starting to turn into that too. So I'm pretty sure that my computers are being monitored, and I would think my phones would be too. They monitor everybody else that doesn't break laws or doesn't have any involvement like this, so why wouldn't they monitor me?
I think you might be able to buy the device to track it down. You might be able to buy that.
They probably have a whole floor devoted to me somewhere. Things listen to or phone out of me. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Here's a question from the crowd here. Were you, basically they're asking you, were you a 9/11 truther before this incident? Were you aware of government complicity in 9/11 before the incident?
You know what's interesting is that before this, I will say no, I wasn't. I would say my position on 9/11 before this was, I don't know what happened. You know, there's evidence both ways, and I don't know who to believe or what to believe. Since then, I look back on all these incidents involving terrorists in the government. I don't believe any of them at all, including 9/11. I don't believe there has ever been a legitimate terrorist attack inside the United States ever. So that's my position now. But that's come about due to what I've witnessed during this case and how I've seen it from the inside out, how the government plays with the media and lies. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention this too. I've seen how they use pictures and video to perpetrate their lie, because what they did in this story, the only pictures you see are of a passport and underwear with the bomb still in it, intact. This didn't happen. His underwear was burned to shreds. I actually know a person that worked on him when he went to the emergency room. I have a friend that's a physician assistant that coincidentally worked on him there. Her quote to me was, "He's not going to be having any kids." And you can't justify that with the fire and the pictures of the intact underwear on TV and the passport, which was the pictures of the passport have been a direct attack on me, my credibility, claiming there's no passport. Well, why on earth would you show pictures of a passport on TV? Who cares? They're just trying to attack me and destroy my credibility. So you can see how they use those pictures, but the actual video from the Amsterdam airport's never shown. So what they show you is the propaganda, and what they hide is the real story. So it's kind of interesting. But I'm being long-winded. Yeah, I don't believe any terrorist attacks were legitimate in the United States ever. I believe the whole entire thing was a fraud, all of it.
Okay. And there's one last question that's come up from the crowd here. They wanted to know, and it sounds like you may agree with this, do you think celebrities like Mel Gibson and Charlie Sheen are being marginalized by the media as nuts because they try to expose government cover-ups?
The government tries to expose everybody as a nut, including myself, anyone that speaks out against them. So, yeah, and, you know, it's easier to attack them. You know, they don't have as much credibility as an attorney does that doesn't have any skeletons in his closet or have any kind of an agenda. So, yeah, they're being marginalized like everybody else. So, part of the game.
Does anybody else have a question before we sign off? No? Attorney Haskell, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for you know, moving this up a month for me, and thank you. And if anybody in here wants your contact information, is it okay for me to give that to them?
Sure. You can just email me at my law firm. It's Haskell Law Firm at Comcast.net. And if any of you haven't been on my blog, actually, it's my wife's blog, haskellfamily.blogspot.com. And when this started happening on Christmas '09, I started going on there and posting articles about this. So if you want to go back to Christmas Day '09 and read forward between all my wife's posts about shoes and shopping and cooking, you can see how my thoughts on this develop as we go along, and I start putting the pieces to the puzzle together, article by article through a timeline. So if you're interested.
And what's the name of the blog again?
It's Haskell Family, my last name, .blogspot.com.
Okay. And don't you have a like a internet radio show going too? Or
you know, I did. Earlier this year, I was getting so fed up with the media that I said, heck, I'm just going to start a radio show, and I'm going to have my own media and start exposing some of these stories. And I did 6 shows, and then I found out it was a lot more time consuming than I have time for, and I stopped. So I don't anymore, but I have 6 shows that you can still listen to if you want.
Okay. Right on. Well, thank you so much. We all appreciate it, and I don't know what else to say other than I am very grateful that you're doing what you're doing. So thanks.
Thank you.
Applause in the background. Everybody's.
I can hear it.
Okay, good.
I can hear it. Thanks.
All right. Well, you hang up on me because here it is. I got my little hang up button. Okay, I'm going to end the call. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Bye.
Thank you, Rachel. You get another autograph.
Good job, Rachel.
Excellent.
Excellent.
That was cool.
Good.
I get it all on camera. Good. Good. Did anybody want to share anything now that he's not here?
Who's the former Homeland Security guy? I can't think of his name now. He's not.
Chertoff?
Who?
Chertoff?
Chertoff. He has financial connections with the naked body scanners.
Oh yeah.
Previous to all this
Yeah.
stuff, this is like a money-making scheme. Oh yeah, look at the guy with the bomber.
Well,
Get everybody all
you
hooped
do
up.
know that those were well in development and well.